Yeah, share the screen if possible. Where okay, no problem. So, given that, may I request now uh, Aleko to move on to the next session, which is the GSODS roundtable, so that Aleko can call the speakers.
We now move on to the concluding event of the day, the first annual roundtable meet of PSAGS of this conference to be attended by the members and audience is to be coordinated by Murshid Alam, uh, postdoctoral fellow of the Institute of Advanced Studies in Humanities at the University of Edinburgh, uh, Dhritiman Chakraborty, Assistant Professor, Department of English at Gould College, Malda, and Shudip Roy Chaudhuri, PSAGS, and I now welcome the respective members.
I have some just issues to raise over here, so that we can come back to that. And
yes.
Luckily we have Sohani today. Simona is still
Yes, carry
sitting.
on.
It's a long day, I'm sure. We don't want to tax her further, but yes.
Before we begin, may I request that you can dwell on the takeaways from the session?
Exactly. Cap of PSAGS, it began, I don't even recall in which year, but yeah, we had a very short meeting in Malda, I remember, with Professor Purokaisto back then, and he was in Malda back then. And then we thought of having an organization in a similar fashion, in the way many organizations in Europe, it was already having conferences over there. Post-colonial association is there in Britain, we know. So Purokaisto then proposed of having one such organization, so that the kind of research, the kind of activities that we are doing, we can come under an umbrella, we can share, we can exchange, and through that we can also learn. So that was the the initial purpose, and then gradually we all know that what we have been doing in these last 2-3 years, whether from studying critical cast studies, then moving to thought geographies, now having this this event on global critical theory. Our focus had been to understand that how from global south we can contribute to some of the debates that are raging in anglophone world, as well as in the in critical literature. So to plug that particular lacuna, or you can say that plug that gap, we actually thought of having this organization, and I'm so glad that I think it's a fifth or sixth conference that we are doing. Sir, is it sixth? Yeah, so this is the sixth time we are convening this, and we did have one example of subaltern studies in us. I mean, we thought of coming out with manifesto. We did come out with manifesto before, and that's the one you can say one project that we had an eye on, and from there we started, and gladly we are in the sixth edition of Post-Colonial Studies Association of the Global South. So with that very brief sort of introductory statement on what PSAG is all about, I just having heard all the presentations, such wonderful, such enlightening presentation. I don't even have to exaggerate. We all know the kind of thought we are taking back from today's deliberations. So some issues that were constantly bugging me, even though we asked many questions, but because most of the presenters were online, so we could not very elaborate on those things. So in this final edition, I mean in this final session, we can come back to some of the issues. I just want to raise those issues. Simona is over here, so she can also answer. Murshida and Shudipda is also there. So the first question that struck me throughout the day was the question of universalism and the question of reason, right? So we are critiquing, we were questioning. So I was also thinking that whether it is now finally time, because for last almost 10 years, I must say, we have been debating this issue, that is it now time to say goodbye to universalism? Or the kind of situation Simona mentioned about the verdict that we had, one of the distraughts again, from the kind of electoral verdict that we got to see yesterday. So is it Is it really an end of universalism? Is it calling for? Is it also calling for some kind of return to a different sort of universalism? So that is one question PSAGS would like to address, that whether it's end or whether it's like further recalibrating the debate and then return within the brackets, so return to that debate once again. The other question that PSAGS has been debating, and it also got substantial reflection in many presentations today, which is the question of epistemic battle. So what kind of epistemic contribution we can have. Now there again, many thinkers, I can think about Farhad Mazar here, I can think about many other names here, who would be arguing that why do we need this word episteme? I mean, again, I'm reminded of that very debate that Gopal Guru had with Sundar Sarukai. So the question of debate and the experience, that all experiences do all, or does all experience, or do all experience need to be qualified as episteme? I mean, how do we differentiate between episteme and experience? I mean, and when we impose the category of episteme on an experience, in what way that experience gets deleted and what sort of new idea comes into it. So this is one question, that when we are talking about Baul, when we are talking about Shohojia, do we need that word episteme or do we need a different word? Because if we are responding to Europe, then it is incumbent on us to find new categories so that we don't have to respond to Europe in its own categories, and thereby further in a way appropriating and further underlining the fact that Europe is indispensable, the way that provincializing Europe mentioned. That do we need to stick to that or do we need to get beyond it, and if beyond, how? So that's a very one question. So the other question, that yes, the critique of secularism issue, yes, that's again a very it's blazing all over. But then again the question is in throwing the baby with the bathwater, are we in a position to then argue that okay, goodbye to secularism and then come back to this once again some religiously defined ideas? And if we do that, are we not falling in trap? I mean, there is a catch, I mean, when we are critiquing secularism, we also need to be very sure that why we are critiquing it. What position do we want to get to? I mean, in throwing the baby with the bathwater, are we not falling in that trap? And finally, when Gandhi's issue came up, Shimona mentioned that a very famous quotation from Gandhi, that he wanted to die as a Hindu because he wanted to defend the rights of Muslim. I mean, in Gandhi's critique of secularism, once again, he didn't return back to a very Hindu identity proposition. His critique was against the religion, or this mixing of religion with politics. So he didn't get back to a very reactive sort of position to critique secularism. So is there any lesson to learn from that? Is there any lesson in the way Ambedkar returned to the question of Buddhism? I mean, after 1950. So these are some of the issues which were making me think throughout the day, and these are some of the issues I'm sure PSAGS and in this final session can also, if members join, we can finally discuss this so that we return with something more handy. Already we are barely full, but just to add this few points. Yeah, Sudipta, you want to? Yes, Murshada, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chakraborty. We have our esteemed invited speaker with us, and we would like to hear from her her views on these questions, and so that collectively we can benefit. My task, as I know, is to flag certain issues which we might take up for our next year. I mean, as in terms of the future activities of PSAGS and also Cairo. So I thought that we would be discussing about that. So we can come to these questions. These are very pertinent, important questions, and we would listen, and if possible, we will also share our views. But given my experience here and my association with PSAGS, I would like to say that PSAGS is doing good. The kind of conferences we are organizing last year we organized conference on contribution from South Asia. The thought geographies, mapping the thought geographies from South Asia. That is what the purpose of this association is, because it is called Post-Colonial Association of the Global South. So our focus is of course on the Global South, and we are focusing on the thoughts, intellectual histories that are there in the Global South. But when we say that we are focusing on Global South, we are still very much a kind of India-centric endeavor. So that we need to keep in mind, because I had talks with some of the fellows here, and I showed them the PSAGS website and Kairos website, and they instantly said that, but where are people from the Global South? So that is one thing I think we need to think about. We need to have more people from Africa, Latin America, and other regions which we sometimes refer to as the Global South. So that is one thing everybody should think about. You might have your own connections. You might know scholars working from as well as on the Global South, the various regions of Global South. So you may suggest, and we will contact them and you invite them, so that we can learn from each other's experiences, from each other's lived world, life world, and as well as from the epistemes, quote unquote, or thought geographies, whatever we may use. So in that way we can grow, we can build connections, we can build networks, and also we can learn from other voices. And so that it is truly a post-colonial studies association of the Global South. So this is one point. Then the second point that I would also like to share is, in terms of the journal, I think we need to have DOI for each and every article. That is one thing, and we also need to go for indexing of the journal. So these are the 2 points that when some of the fellows here they raised when they had a look at the website of the journal. So these 2 points we need to keep in mind about the journal. Otherwise, the journal is doing really good in terms of the quality of publications, in terms of the not only the quality, the stylistic standard that the journal is maintaining, and also the kind of scholars who are writing. So that is important. It is already getting recognized in I would say globally, but we need to do these things to make it all the more globally competitive, quote unquote competitive, and yeah. So but to do that, we need to also have funding. We need to have resources, because such works need money, because every year we need to buy the domain for the journal, as well as we also, related to this, we need to mention that the current PSAGS website is, we lost the password of that website. So I think we need to go for a new website, PSAGS website, and that will obviously require some money, definitely. So we need to think about fund. We need to think about financial assistance, not only from the members. We need also to look beyond the members. We have our own associations or connections. We might go to our friends and ask for financial assistance. So that is one thing that I wanted to raise here. And another thing, perhaps we also need to think about the possible ideas on which we can organize our next conference, because some of the associations that I have been in touch with, we saw that in their annual meet, they decide the future agenda. I mean, they decide on the topic that they would be coming up with, a conference next year. So maybe we can think about that as well right now, and we may come up with certain ideas. And yeah, these are the points for now. And if I have any other point, I would share later. And of course, we can have the discussion as Dr. Chakraborty raised on the point.
Hello. As Murshid said, we thought it to be a discussion and begging for suggestions from the members that how can we develop as a group, as an academic group, and how can we thrive and develop in the future. So I beg suggestion from all of you here on some questions. How can we make our group more interdisciplinary? I want some suggestions from all of you. And how can we make our research more immediately effective to our social world? And as Murshid said, every institution thrives on funds, and how can we generate more funds through our research work? And we should give importance to reading as our collective, as reading collective. How can we make more engaging reading collectives? Here we have already a group that is called Alpo Sankhok, where we read together some particular texts and take various and see those texts from various perspectives. But I would like to suggest here that if we can meet 1 month or 2 months later and make it a point that everyone who is working on whose area, everyone should offer their own readings on their specific research area, and we should question in thereby we can develop as a we can develop our speaking abilities as well as our public speaking abilities as well as our thinking process. And how can we spread globally and within India? How can we are mainly centered on West Bengal. How can we go beyond West Bengal? These are some of the questions and some of the questions that I want to take some suggestions from you.
So, madam, would you like to start? Should we start with you first?
The distinguished guest out here.
I'd actually like to hear what I'll also.
Thank you, Jyotiman, Murshid and Sudip. Yes, I apologize that I was not present when Dhitiman actually made his comments. Uh, I returned when Murshid was commenting, speaking. Yes, fund is a real issue, and we always talk about that, but I don't think that we are really going for it. And now it's high time that we should go for thinking about fundraising and all that. And I don't think that it is the only platform, rather today we can make it, but we should make an agenda and meet on that particular agenda, fund. A PSAGS general meeting may not be within the time limit of this conference, but on some other day. But I am a bit skeptic about Murshid's next proposition that planning the theme of the conference. I do think that theme can wait. This kind of association which has to respond to the situations, I think that planning, much prior planning is not always very necessary, at least insofar as the theme is concerned. Otherwise, the dates or other things are different, but theme may be decided later as we do right now. And yes, about Shudip's points, and I think that Dhitiman has said something about discussion about today's.
Not related to PSAGS per se, about the today's discussion.
Yes. That is a very. I do support that if possible, if time permits. And then let's immediately come to Shudip's positions. I will just begin about interdisciplinarity. If we can just drop the word interdisciplinarity.
Exactly.
I'm just wondering that interdisciplinarity, if it includes discipline, and that is something. It always disciplines our thinking. Discipline is important. I should not be rather go against all kinds of disciplines, and that may not be a very right way to do things. But actually, while we're thinking about going beyond, then let us drop the word discipline and just think about the thing a topic or theme we are talking about, and then go wherever you should go, rather, not unsystematically, maybe systematically, but disciplinary boundary should not guide the systems always. That is my point. Finally, yes, reading groups. Shudip is a great reader, actually. We know about that. He's a great reader. And sometimes I think that I will learn reading from Shudip, how to read. And yes, the reading group, if we can increase the frequency of our readings and make it more we can increase the number of books or anything in any manner. I do think that when first Anindra proposed it, it was a marvelous idea, and we actually try to do this, engage in this kind of sessions, not only within a particular kind of a session, but a particular kind of another organizational orbit, but beyond that. And I think that still we are lacking what we should do, and that should be the ideal thing to go for. And really, well, the last question, how to go beyond West Bengal, and I really think that it will not be very. I am not the very right person to talk about that. I'm too much invested in West Bengal. Sorry for that.
We are already a mixed batch. That's the best part of PSAGS. We are coming from various disciplines. I mean, from literature to history to social science, political science, and so many other disciplines. So yeah, so that's why that's the one advantage of in PSAGS. Yes, as for going out and any other suggestion that should be raised about the points, please feel free. It's not very formal. We know we are tired, exhausted. Just to just a brief leading comment if you have any to add, please. So as for funding, I yesterday we talked of that. It's a one very important issue, and we talked of that we have to first register our forum, PSAGS, and then we can possibly apply to various non-government organization, not necessarily NGO. Even if it is transnational, we can apply for that. But again, funding agency will have certain priorities. I mean, why they should be funding us until we have something to offer in terms of whether empirical data, whether in terms of archive, whether in terms of some translation. So it has to be very pointed. Otherwise, on a general topic, very few takers are there. We all know that the scenario of funding has over the years changed. So if we have to apply to Tata, Tata's has many projects, but they would definitely want a particular project that we are doing something for archiving, for preservation of our tradition, something related to that. So yes, we are coming from various places, so we can think of that whether we can do something on preservation aspect. So sir, if you yes, Nasima, yeah. Now you have to be very vocal once again. Yeah.
I have a very humble comment to make, especially when Dhritimanda talked about the aspect of funding, and we cannot really avoid the importance and utility of money. So yeah, that's there. But definitely the entire politics of funding that Dhritimanda gestured towards is something which makes me feel very skeptical about then what happens to the kind of authentic, radical spirit of such a forum like PSAGS. I mean, to what extent can we retain this spirit of ours that we are extremely proud of while being funded? Because the entire politics of funding has its own agenda, as Dhritivanda very rightly pointed out. So I am also trying to think about it. Let's see.
I told that we want to gather fund through our research work, not by somebody's gracious gift. I want fund through our research work by doing some project works.
Yeah, I understood, but even then, so I'm just wondering. I hope that this is not the case 100%. But most of the times, what happens if we are appealing to certain funding bodies, we need to keep into consideration what kind of projects they would like to fund. What is the polemic behind the kind of work that is desired by them? So then, are we ready to tailor-made our own trajectory, keeping in mind that we also have to get funded? That's what I'm trying to problematize and understand. Yeah.
Yes, so other than funding,
I think this is sorry, Professor Claude,
please carry on.
Sorry.
Also,
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I think this is an important point. Funding is necessary, but the point Nasima is raising, that is also important. We would not like to compromise our autonomy or the kind of work we want to do. Okay, so I mean, we have to balance between the two. Since we are talking about Frankfurt School critical theory, we know that Institute for Social Research was funded by an individual. It was able to carry out the projects because of the fund that it got from that person. We luckily or unluckily we don't have any such person to fund us. But what we can do is that all of us are associated with various institutions. We do our jobs, so maybe we can personally contribute, or this is one thing. And the second thing what we can do is that we can apply for various research projects, and there are many funders in India, abroad also, but I don't know much about the many. There are many definitely. I have got to know about some, but they have their own kind of criteria for application, which may not be applicable. Which we may not be eligible to apply. So that problem is there, but we can definitely go for our institutions like ICSR, what is that called, ICSR and other funding. So we can think about research projects, and we can do our work. So that can be one way out of this dilemma that we are talking about.
Yes, so other than funding, yeah, we can see it and we can think, but I think on one point we are all agreeing that we have to sit, right? I mean, it can't be about 1 year event. So only on December we will come and communicate, and then after that, goodbye for a year. So it shouldn't be like that. I think that's one proposal. So let's meet in 2 months or 3 months so that we can, more finalize on this thing. I was seeing that Shati ma'am was sitting there since morning. Madam প্রচুর ধৈর্য নিয়ে সব শুনছিলেন। থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ, আপনি এরকম ভাবে এতটা অ্যাটেনশন নিয়ে শুনছেন। আপনার কাছে একটু আগে শুনো ম্যাম, আপনার সাজেশন।
আমাদের ILSR এর সাথে PSAGS 2 বছর একসঙ্গে কাজ করছে, সেরকম আমরা যারা বিভিন্ন জায়গায় আছি, মানে ধরুন তারা তাদের ইনস্টিটিউটে যদি এই জিনিসটা যেটা আপনি বলছিলেন যে আমরা কলকাতায় কাজ করছি, মানে এটা ঠিক, মানে এই মানে আবার সেই ইউরোসেন্ট্রিক হতে চাইছি না আমরা, আবার আমরা ক্যালকাটা সেন্ট্রিক হয়ে যাচ্ছি, মানে এটার থেকে PSAGS কে বেরোতে হবে হয়তো, কারণ একটা জায়গায় আমরা থাকতে পারি না, মানে এমনিতেই তো বদনাম আছে না, কলকাতায় এলে সব ভাষা এক হয়ে যায়, মানে সেই সবাই সেই কৃষ্ণনগরী ভাষা বলতে থাকে, প্রত্যেকের যে ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ মাল্টিপ্লিসিটি হোক যাই হোক সমস্তটা যদি আমরা করতে চাই, তাহলে আমাদের অন্তত পশ্চিমবঙ্গেও সমস্ত জায়গাগুলো যদি আমরা আমাদের যারা মেম্বাররা আছেন তারা তাদের ইনস্টিটিউটে যদি একটা করে কিছু অর্গানাইজ করেন, সেমিনার ওয়ার্কশপ ছোট করেই হোক, কিন্তু হোক সেটা PSAGS, তাহলে সেই জায়গায় যেতে পারে। গতকালকে মানে অনিন্দ স্যারের সাথে কথা হচ্ছিল যে আমরা রিসেন্টলি সিকিম সেন্ট্রাল ইউনিভার্সিটিতে একটা গিয়েছিলাম কনফারেন্সে, তো সেখানে আমাদের শ্রীলঙ্কার একজন স্কলারের সাথে হয়েছিল কথা, এবং তিনি এসেছিলেন ওখানে। তো উই আর থিঙ্কিং অ্যাবাউট টু ইনফর্ম হার, দ্যাট ইনভাইট হার ফর দ্য PSAGS, and one scholar from Singapore University. I think Anindya sir has communicated with him. I think so, no sir? So we are trying. আমরা ইন্ডিভিজুয়ালি যেসব জায়গায় যাচ্ছি, মানে ধরুন আপনি যাচ্ছেন, সুদীপ যাচ্ছেন, বা সপ্তপর্ণী যাচ্ছে, বা নাসিমা যাচ্ছে, যেখান থেকে, এবং আমি আজকে শুনলাম তো অনেক অন্য ইউনিভার্সিটি থেকেও এসছেন, ANU থেকেও বোধহয় একজন এসেছিলেন স্কলার, না? তো আজকে আমাদের সঙ্গে সিমোনা এসেছে IIT দিল্লি থেকে, সুতরাং আমরা আবার একটা গেটওয়ে পেলাম, মানে উই ক্যান রিচ IIT Delhi. We can request Simona to organize a workshop with PSAGS there. So PSAGS could go beyond West Bengal. এটা আমরা করতে পারি। আর ফান্ড রেজিং এর জন্য সত্যি তো সমস্যাগুলো রয়েছে, তবে আমরা ওই নিজেরা যদি আরেকটু মানে অ্যাক্টিভ হই, আর ওই মানে আমিও PSAGS এর সদস্য হয়েছি, তো সুতরাং ওইটা যদি একটুখানি মানে আমরা আরেকটু দিতে পারবো কিনা ভাবতে হবে, কিছু একটা করতে পারবো কিনা ভাবতে হবে, আরো একটু মানে আমাদের একই ধরনের ভাবনা চিন্তা করছেন, কাজ করছেন এরকম লোকেদের আমরা রিকোয়েস্ট করতে পারি টু জয়েন PSAGS, অ্যাটলিস্ট আমাদের মানে ILSR এর যারা অধ্যাপক আছেন তাদেরকে বলতে পারি, ILSR এর স্কলার অ্যাসোসিয়েটদের বলতে পারি, তাহলে তো মানে আমার মনে হয় কিছু একটা হবে, মানে এত নেগেটিভ না ভেবে মানে একটু পজিটিভ ভাবতে হবে। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, ছোট ছোট, যেমন আমরা সেটাই মানে প্রত্যেকে নিজের নিজের ইনস্টিটিউটে যদি একটা 2 মাস পরে 3 মাস পরে একটা ছোট ছোট একটা টক হতে পারে, একটা লেকচার হতে পারে, সেটা যদি এরকম হয় যে এরকম এখানে আমাদের বেশিরভাগটাই আজকে অনলাইন হলো, অনলাইনও হতে পারে, হ্যাঁ অনলাইনও হতে পারে। ওকে, থ্যাংক ইউ।
Thank you, madam. Our internal members can also present once in month or once in 2 months. Even you are publishing, you are coming out with books, articles. So why don't you even present? You are ending your PhD or something. So you can also share your own inputs. So keep the this thing going. I mean, instead of lapsing back and then waking up one day. So just keep the boiler sort of going so that we can have more discussion. So yes, instead of keeping all of you for another 30 minutes or something, it's already very late. Yeah. So you want to add, and finally we'll come to Simona for your concluding words.
Hello, I'm Shampurna. I'm not a member of this group, but at the moment I'm not affiliated to any institution per se, right? And when you guys are talking about the survival of acha uthe darate hobe. Oh, acha. When you were talking about the survival of this small but effective community, I could relate it to my personal situation, right? And I kind of remember this very potent term by Ajit Chaudhary, where he says we are all post-colonial collaborators. So when we are talking about this, that when we take funds, we have to somewhere sacrifice this, this spirit of ours. But as a post-colonial collaborator, where practicing theory as it is very difficult, we have to strike that pragmatic balance, I feel. I mean, for example, I can think of myself here. How do I survive without being affiliated to any person or any institute? I do some kind of work that allows me to survive, one day at a time. It's piecemeal. We can't get a corpus fund because as it is, nobody is going to give you money. I mean, capitalism is not going to give you money to criticize capitalism. That is not it's not intelligible in any way. But that doesn't mean we stop doing what we are doing, right? We have to be the quintessential or the proverbial post-colonial collaborator that Ajit Chaudhary talks of. Take it what you get and be at it forever. That's it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's the spirit. She has very interestingly captured that. Yeah, over to Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Sampurna, because this is exactly what I was thinking of, saying that Jyotima narrated about the history. I'm not going back through the corridors of history talking about how we began, but this is a fact that we began in a very casual and a very informal way. I mean, I remember Mushed, Jyotima, some of us were there. And we have been talking about it, that since we are working on all these areas, why not forming, I would not call it an association personally. I always keep on saying this to Mushed and to Jyotima and to others also. But I prefer to call it a small research group, that's all. And personally, I'm not that much interested in a massive funding drive, linking up with other associations and things like that. I understand that we need to move beyond Kolkata. Most of us are not from Kolkata, and that perhaps is the strength of this group. We are working in Kolkata, but we have clear connections with the margins, different locations of West Bengal. And while I do welcome the suggestion that we need to revamp, to widen, to expand, and to move to other parts of the country, other parts of the globe, since we are calling it the Global South. In fact, the very terminology Global South has been debated in a big way. So, frankly speaking, I sometimes think of rethinking and renaming, because it sounds very highly loaded, association of the Global South, etc., etc. But it was a moment of how should I call it, kind of an informal intellectual flourish and enthusiasm that we felt that since we were working on the post-colonial, we need to form a group where some of us who do not have much say on Indian academia, because which is itself an area of hegemony. I mean, we are talking about Western hegemony, we are talking about Western domination, and I'm much more interested about the micropolitics of hegemony and domination within our own spaces, everywhere within the city of Kolkata, beyond the city of Kolkata. We have internalized all these structures of domination, all of us, most of us. And I'm more interested in constantly developing this practice of self-critique, that how I myself can, guard against replicating the same form of domination which I critique all the time. And I have the right to critique it all the time. I will always fight for it. But my interest would be to maintain this group. It can go up in numbers. But the Frankfurt School began as a reading group. It was a reading group of heterodox Marxist reading circle. Moshe mentioned about that person who funded it. His son was a part, Felix. So he was part of that group, and this is how it began. It was not an institute in the beginning. It was a reading group. So Shruti talked about Alpo Shankok, the reading group. I'd just like to share with you that for the last 1 year, we completed reading. Maybe it took a long time, but we are happy. We completed reading Origins of Totalitarianism by Hannah Arendt. And before coming to the conference, every year we do it. We read the works. For example, we read Martin Jay's book before coming to the conference. Last year, we also studied the works of the speakers who were invited to speak. So we tried our best. Manoj, I remember, forwarded in the group the works of Shimona. That we should be having a look at it before we go to the conference. So this is this is a very humble attempt on our part to develop and strengthen this culture and habit of reading interpretation, because that is where the problem lies. Interpretation of the Vedas as the ruling political dispensation called. This is India, and where we are faltering. I mean, the areas of interpretation. Constantly being vigilant. And Simona mentioned about Derrida, about archive fever, and we talked about being autocritical. So I think we constantly talk about it. We encourage this climate and culture of debate within us. We defend the right of others to raise points, but at the same time, we allow others to have the counter view as well. This, I think, is healthy, and this is what we can do to sustain critique. So I personally is more in the form of retaining and maintaining and kind of strengthening this coherence that we have, the cohesiveness that we have, in coming to the table, reading a book, extending our ideas, and strengthening this culture and habit of reading and thinking. I'm more interested in that rather than applying for funds, because as Moshe said, as Nashima also mentioned, Ridhima also talked about it yesterday, funding is okay, but then PSAGS given to me personally, I would prefer to keep it as it is, as long as we can maintain this camaraderie, this getting together to read, to constantly keep our minds open. And first of all, I would allow myself to be re-critiqued today and tomorrow. That vigilantism, if I can take that cow vigilantism, replacing it with my own vigilantism, because in that way we can defeat cow vigilantism and other forms of right-wing violence or other forms of violence. I remember, I think I would like to share this with all of you, that Nadia wrote to me before the beginning of this conference that what is PSAGS's position on Israel. And she said that she wants to speak about the Israel-Palestine issue during her talk. And if we do not allow her, then she would withdraw. I wrote back to her, I talked about this with Subhendra because I didn't have much time. And then I wrote back to her, I said that you have every right to mention and to raise the issue of Israel and Palestine, absolutely free. But at the same time, there will be others who will be maybe having another form of idea. And I said that we encourage this democratic spirit to function, because when we're talking about the demise of democracy in one side, we cannot replicate the same in our own positions. So I think that's it. And our strength, I think, is that we have weathered 6 years, as you mentioned. We have weathered 6 years. Who knows, we'll be weathering 6 more winters. Who knows? So if that happens, fine. I mean, I'm happy. And I hope that all of us can continue doing our work. National is always quote unquote radical, and we get warmed up by those things, and then we have something to say to her, to retort to what she says. But this is how it goes. This is how it goes. I mean, we don't negate anyone, but we complement each other, and that is how we are. And I think, as Shubhendra said, for the next year's conference, yes, we keep reading, thinking, talking about issues, and then we can think about it maybe 6 years down the line. Sorry, 6 months down the line. So that is how we go. Yeah. Yes.
So, because I'm happy sir talked about the idea of camaraderie, and on talking about that, on a very effective note, I'd like to underscore something, which is in my presentation also. I was wanting to talk about the idea of safe space and brave space, but because of the lack of time, I couldn't really explain. So give me 1 minute, I'll explain it very quickly, and then I'll join that to this space, because this space is my safe space. PSAGS is my safe space, and PSAGS is my brave space as well. So what is a safe space in psychological terms? Safe space is a space which is harm-free, where you don't feel any form of harm or onslaught. You don't feel attacked. So that is a safe space. So if you don't feel any form of attack or censored, then you can be your real self. There is nothing real, I understand, but you know what I mean. Commonsensically speaking, you feel more enabled. So a safe space is always an enabling space. It's a very intimate, beautiful space. There is this sense of affect between the members, and then again, so is it a very self-pleasing space where nobody hurts anybody and everybody is very happy on their own? So is it that kind of a very naka space? No. Safe space again comes with another element to it, which is the brave space. So a safe space is not only a space which always maintains political correctness and doesn't hurt you, doesn't harm you, so you can keep on talking about yourself. It's not like that. Safe space also, for me, brings up the idea of a brave space, and brave space is that space which enables you to challenge yourself without feeling attacked. So even if I am not attacked or harmed in this space, that does not mean I am not challenged. So with consent, we collectively try to live some sort of live some sort of discomfort and think through that discomfort, and we challenge each other, but we challenge each other with a lot of affection towards each other. So as I said, and I know sir being so humble, sir will never let me talk about it, but we all know who have had the privilege to be taught under him, that he has always been this beautiful safe space and brave space for us, and we have ruthlessly challenged him. We have been challenging him in multiple ways. Over the phone, we critique him so much, and we have almost, it borders on the level of jhagra at times, and we can only do that to him. We cannot do that to anybody who somehow gives us the very threatening sense of vibe or energy. It's a vibe culture, so we talk. Sorry sir, we are using this Gen Z lingo. So yeah. See, he will do that. He will do that to you. He will not allow anybody to talk about himself. So anyway, I'll underscore this. So how to become a safe space, a brave space, and a human being can become that to you. And that's a beautiful achievement of both Sir and PSAGS. So thank you.
Thank you, Naseema. Yeah, I can see, yes, I can see Onubda over there taking liberty to call you the. So is Dhritiman over here, Onubda? Can you please share your experience?
Really, you want me to talk about that?
Yes, yes, please. Please go ahead.
Let me stick to the. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Let me stick to the idea of the conference actually. Um, uh, the challenge was to actually do theory or critical theory from the global south. That was the challenge actually, and I think that is the most challenging thing whenever, and you all are doing it already, and that was wonderful. Who talked about brave space just now. Uh, it is tough actually to do theory, especially critical theory from the global south, and I'm saying from, uh, and that is primarily because the south is usually rendered either a native informant or data or context. I think that is most important actually. The South will always be made a context, but the South will never be allowed to render a deconstructive crack into the text. That is the trap actually. They will not let us get into the text, but just remain context. So Dhritiman, I think I'll just stick to this one line that it ties with the idea of this conference actually, that what you are trying to do, and yeah. So that was the challenge, that was the difficulty actually. It's not easy to be relentless over there and examine critically texts that have either come to us from the West or texts that are ours. One needs a dual critique. So that is a difficulty we had. It was not easy actually, and I think margins, or from the margins, it was tackled from the margins actually. From the margins came a little too early, I think, little too early. It was a little pre-born, prematurely born, I think. Today, I think the situation is a little better, and the kind of work on Indo, and many of you are doing now, I think has created the ground for a journal like From the Margins. It came a little too early. Yeah, that much. I shouldn't take too much time.
Okay, thank you. We are waiting for your presentation tomorrow. So yeah, we shall catch up again. Thank you, Nubda. Yeah, so finally, as as I mentioned, Sudipta, if you have no point to add, any quick one? No. Okay, so finally, over to Shimona. We started with you and we shall end with you. Yes, so your final concluding words.
Okay, so thank you so much.
Oh, it's because of that.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. So, yeah, thank you so much, Titiman and everyone else. It was just really a privilege actually to be here today and to listen to all the speakers, but also to listen to all of you right now. I think this is when I got a sense of what the group is about and what you're doing. And it seems so important. I must say that my heart is exactly with what Anindya said. That is that it, to me also it seems, yes, there's something to be said for expanding and for publishing and for doing, but really the main thing is reading, and particularly if you can read together. Um, we all read alone, and reading is mostly solitary, but then to also come and talk about reading in this kind of a space of camaraderie, I mean, that is almost, if you can do that, I think that's extraordinary. Because it just doesn't happen. There's always, even in, I regret to say this, but I think even in the classroom, it's very difficult to create that kind of a space. For example, I mean, I teach in a public university. You know, there are all these questions of language. Even though I try very hard, I say you can speak in any language you want. And people do speak in different languages. But still, there are some people who speak and some who don't speak. And it's not that those who don't speak don't have interesting things to say. It's for all sorts of reasons. And then the classroom also, I always fear it becomes a space which perpetuates, you know, a kind of various kinds of hierarchies, whether of language or class or region or whatever, caste, all sorts of things, gender. So I think basically what I'm saying is, yes, if you can have that kind of a space where you read carefully, you read together, I think that is really, really worth preserving and, you know, keeping. But I was thinking, since you wanted to enlarge a little bit, that maybe occasionally you could do these reading sessions on the internet, where, you know, if you chose a few interesting texts, maybe not books, but essays that, you know, would have a wide appeal, you know, a lot of people might want to join once in a while. I think there's something to be said for keeping the in-person. We lose also a lot in the virtual interaction, but maybe, I don't know, twice a semester or something, you could do something that's, you know, if you plan it ahead of time and you let people know and you advertise it, there might be a lot of people who might want to join. And this might be a way to think about, this is just a suggestion, you know, to think about a theme, like to read a few texts around a certain theme. For example, if you're interested in the question of the secular, it seems like that was coming back, or critiques. I mean, this is just because it came up in your remarks also. That maybe choose, you know, 3 or 4 texts and then read them, and then, you know, have a broader discussion, and then see what comes out of it, or whether it's yeah, I mean, that's all I have to say. You know, the questions, Tritiman, you raised at the end are extremely significant, and I would love to talk about them, all of them. The question of universalism, the question of the secular, but I think this is not the time. Everyone is exhausted, and those are very complicated questions. So I just want to thank you all, and I want to wish you all the best, because what you're doing is really, really remarkable. So, and I don't speak Bengali, but I understood a little bit of what you were saying, and I think what you were saying is all the sessions need not be held in Kolkata, and they can be held in different places, because we don't need to become Kolkata centric. And I thought that's also a great idea, you know, and maybe sometimes this traveling somewhere together and then meeting to read, that also brings its own sense of excitement and a new kind of,
And we have, in the morning you have seen that we are doing a research on minor intellectuals
yes,
in West Bengal, and we have planned 6 workshops, 3 in Kolkata, 3 in Malda, in Gore College.
yes,
So we will reach there. We want to
yes,
do this.
yes.
Okay. Thank you. So with that note, let's call it a day, and PSAGS shall continue a conversation with you for in future as well. Okay. So we are meeting tomorrow once again.